In this video, we will show you how to replace your radiator on this Honda Civic. This will be located along the front of your engine compartment. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. We're going to remove this forward plastic panel across the top of this area. To remove this, you're going to find that it has several plastic push clips holding it in place, making their way all the way across. We'll start with the push clips. For each of these, I'm going to be using a trim tool. Just carefully start pulling out the center and the rest of it should lift up and out of position. Just a quick inspection, make sure these are reusable, replace them as necessary. Now on either side of this plastic panel, you're going to find that you have a 5.5mm Allen head mounting bolt holding this panel in place. Let's remove the pair. As we start removing this plastic panel, you're going to find that it makes its way underneath the front grille. So we're going to have to carefully lift up, pull it away, and then pull it out of position. The next thing I like to do is drain the coolant. For this, we're going to start up along the radiator cap. Just make sure it's cool to the touch. You never want to open this if your vehicle has been running for a while and it's hot. We'll press this down, turn it counterclockwise. Now as we lift this up and away, we want to have it away from our face, of course. Just a quick inspection of that radiator cap. Replace it as necessary. Continuing from here, I'm just going to rest this right on top of the radiator, and let's make our way down along the center of the engine compartment for our drain. Now if you were looking all the way down along the center area here, you can feel down along the driver's side of the radiator. This is where the drain is going to be. Looking just below it, there's a small port. You want to make sure you have a collection receptacle under that area to collect and recycle all this coolant properly. We'll take hold of this plastic drain plug, turn it counterclockwise until coolant comes out. Let it fully drain. Now let's start dislodging our upper radiator bulkhead here. For this, you're going to find that it has several bolts holding it in place. We're going to start on one side of the vehicle. There's 3 10mm headed mounting bolts, 2 out in the open, the other one's tucked in just behind this area. Let's get that next one along the back side here. Now we can repeat the process on the other side. Now we've got quite a bit of movement here, but we need a little bit more slack from our hood release cable and also from our wiring harness along the driver's side here. So I'm just going to dislodge each of these two. Using a trim tool, it'll pop that up and out. Continuing from here, we're going to lift this up. It can only come so far. We're going to start pushing it away and towards the engine. Okay, the other side. Let's pay attention to our wiring harness leading over towards our engine fan. We're going to dislodge it from its securing point, part of the radiator there. I'm just going to squeeze on the 2 locking ears along the forward side here. We can pull that out of place. Disconnect the electrical connector. For this, it has a locking tab right where my index finger is. We'll squeeze it in and push that out of place. Quick inspection for corrosion. Along the top of the radiator, we're going to disconnect our overflow hose from the radiator. For this, typically you should be able to take hold of the hose, give it a little twist to separate it. If it's stuck in place, you can use a pick or just pry it out of place. Just be extremely careful. Set that aside. Let's move along to our upper radiator hose. This has a squeezable clamp, so I'm just going to squeeze on the ears. We'll pull this out of place away from the radiator. For this radiator hose, I'm using my pick. We'll get this separated. Make sure your hose is soft and pliable, not torn, worn, or damaged. We'll set that aside. Let's flex that radiator forward. Obviously, we don't want to cause any damage, but we have to dislodge our coolant reservoir from that fan assembly. You'll find that there's a 10mm bolt holding this in place. Use my ratcheting wrench. Once you have the bolt out of there, take hold of the coolant reservoir. We're going to lift it up and maneuver it. Down at the bottom, there's a small locating tab that we have to dislodge. Up along the top of the radiator, you're going to find that you have two 10mm bolts holding this fan in place. Let's remove the pair. Just take hold of that fan assembly. We're going to have to lift it up and remove it from this area. Now, as we start lifting this up, you can only come up so far. You have to look all the way down on the bottom driver's side corner of this fan assembly. You're going to find that there's a wiring harness pressed into the bottom there. You should be able to gain access to that from the top. Just go ahead and pop it out of place. We have it separated. Remove your fan. A quick inspection and we'll set it aside. Now let's pay attention to our AC cooling fan itself. We're going to start with the wiring harness up along this area. We'll just go ahead and dislodge that. It has a small mounting point. I'm using my trim tool. Pop that right out of there. Continuing on for the electrical connector, it has a small locking tab. You just want to go ahead and squeeze that in and pull it out of place. There's the locking tab. A quick inspection for corrosion, of course. We'll set that aside. Up along the top, two 10mm bolts. Down along the bottom, you're going to have two locating tabs. It essentially just lifts up and out of position. We'll give it a quick inspection and set that aside as well. All the way down at the bottom of the radiator, you're going to find that you have a coolant temp sensor here. Disconnect the electrical connector. It has a locking tab. Just go ahead and squeeze that in, pull it out of place. It's common for this to be stuck on there pretty well. That looks good. It's time for the lower radiator hose. Now for the lower radiator hose, I put a mirror underneath it so you can see that it has a small clip. That clip starts down at the bottom. It essentially forms a U, and it's going to make its way up along each side of this lower radiator hose. The clip overall is fairly easy to remove. Along each side is where you're going to have a locking tab. We just want to go ahead and pull that out of place. I'm using an angled pick for this. Once you start pulling it away, you should be able to start pressing it down, dislodging that locking clip. We'll do the same on the other side. There we are. I'm going to reach down there. We'll remove that locking clip. There's our metal clip. Quick inspection, make sure that is reusable. Typically, it's a good idea to replace that. I'll just pry that out of place. Got some movement here. Pull that out of place. Just a quick inspection. We'll set that aside. Take hold of the radiator, we'll lift it up and out of position, and we'll have to get it over to the bench. Now we have the radiator on the bench. Let's make our way down towards that coolant temperature sensor. We're going to remove that from the bottom of the radiator using a 17mm. A quick inspection of the sensor, confirming it's not damaged, cracked, or otherwise unusable. This one looks fine, so we'll set it aside. With that out of position, the next thing we have to look at is along the bottom of the radiator. You should find that you have two locating tabs. it's common for the rubber mounts to come out with that radiator when you go to remove it from the vehicle. If that's the case, just go ahead and pull it out of place. A quick inspection, we'll set that aside and repeat the process on the other side. Alright friend, let's prepare our brand new radiator for installation. We have it on the bench. We're going to start at this area right along where that lower radiator hose should sit. You're going to find that you have a rubber plug. Just go ahead and take hold of that and we'll pull it out of place. That's where the coolant temp sensor is going to go. I've already cleaned up the area and I applied a thin amount of lubricant on my sealing ring. Let's start this in by hand so we're sure we're not cross-threading it into the wrong position. Once it's bottomed out, we'll just snug it up using our 17mm. Okay, right there's bottomed out with my ratchet. I'm not going to go too much further here, but I do want to make sure it is secured. Now let's pause with the radiator. We're going to have to focus down inside the engine compartment where the radiator is supposed to sit. Now all the way down in the bottom of this area is where I told you that those rubber mounts are supposed to be sitting. Sometimes they'll be in the vehicle still. Other times, if they were attached to the radiator, you just want to go ahead and pull them out of place like I said, and we're just going to rest them down into their circular ports. There's one. Just go ahead and do the same on the other side. One more thing before we start installing the radiator into the vehicle, we're just going to look at that radiator hose that went to the bottom of the radiator. Deep inside this area, you're going to find a circular O-ring. We just want to give this a quick wipe, a close inspection of the O-ring, and then I'm going to apply a thin amount of lubricant. Now I've got some lubricant on my finger here. You can use some petroleum jelly. I'll just circle it around on there. This is going to help it slide onto the radiator easier. Just one more thing on this, we also have our metal clip. We want to make sure we have it in the proper orientation. Looking at this, if you were looking where the very tip of each side of the clip is going to go, you can tell which way the clip needs to be facing. We want to have the ears facing out towards where the radiator would be. Let's go ahead and start sliding this into position on one side. We'll stretch it and put it in position on the other, and then lock it in. Now it's time to install our radiator. Let's go ahead and carefully start bringing this down into position. We're trying to align those two lower mounting tabs with their corresponding rubber grommets down at the bottom that we inserted. There's one. There we are. Down in the center of the radiator, we'll just make sure that our drain is closed. We'll get that coolant hose in a second. Let's reattach our coolant temp sensor. Line it up, press it in. Listen for an audible click, a light tug confirming that's secured in place. Let's install that lower radiator hose. We're going to press that on as far as possible. Listen for an audible click coming from that metal clip, and then we're going to try to pull it out and away from the radiator, confirming it's properly secured. Now it's time for our cooling fans. We're going to start with the one over towards the passenger side. Each one of these fans will have small locating tabs along the bottom. We're just going to align them with the circular ports along the bottom of the radiator. That's the mounting points. Once it's aligned, it should want to slide down. Once it's in there, I'm just going to go ahead and give a tug down along the bottom there. I'm trying to pull it out and away from the radiator, confirming it's properly secured. Up along the top of the fan, we're going to start in our two mounting bolts and snug them up. Before we can install our other fan, the next thing we have to do is install our coolant reservoir. Before we do so, just have a quick look along the bottom of this. We have one small locating tab. We'll just take this, we're going to bring it down and in, but slide it over towards the side so we can install the fan. Once the fan's in, we'll put this inside of the fan shroud, and then we can continue on with our 10mm bolt along the top. There's all the way over there. Now it's time for our fan assembly. Along the bottom of the fan, you will have two small locating tabs that will fit into the radiator. we are. A little bit of a tight fit, trying to get everything to squeeze into position here. There we are. Just double check, make sure each one of those 2 lower tabs is in position by tugging on the bottom of that fan. It should not pull away. Now we'll install our fan assembly mounting bolts up along the top. Once they're started in, snug them up. It's time for the coolant reservoir. We're just going to try to work this around so we can get that lower tab into the radiator. It's fairly difficult to see, but once you do slide it in, it should align that mounting bolt. We can start in the mounting bolt and, of course, snug that up as well. Okay, right there is bottomed out. Make sure that's tight. Let's install that overflow hose. Press it onto the radiator as far as possible. Double check, make sure it's secured in place. Now it's time for the upper radiator hose. Press it on as far as possible, reinstall the clamp into the original position. Just put our cap here so nothing falls inside there. Now we can get this in position. Bring it in here. Along the top, there's several areas that we need to pay attention to. Of course, we have the mounting bolt ports, but we also have the ports for the radiator and also the ports for the AC condenser. Everything needs to be aligned on both sides of the vehicle. Along each side of this, you should find that you have 3 10mm mounting bolts. They're all started in, let's snug them up. Now just do the same on the other side. Let's take care of our wiring harness there. We also have our hood release cable. Now it's time for our electrical connectors. We're going to start with the one over on the driver's side for the fan assembly itself. It's right next to where that coolant reservoir cap is. Plug in the electrical connector and then secure the wiring harness. Now we've just got our wiring harness right down inside this port right here. Just want to press it in. All the way over towards the passenger side, it's time for the other fan connector. This one's a little loose on this. Just press it in. Audible click. Let's secure that wiring harness. Now it's time for the upper panel. Start getting this in position. We'll have to gently pull out on that front grille. It needs to slide into its corresponding slots here on the panel. There we are. Let's start with our 2 mounting bolts here. The other one started in as well. They're both started in, snug them up. It's time for several push clips making their way all the way across this panel. For any of the push clips, go ahead and press in the outer portion first. Lock it in by pressing in the center. Okay, now it's time to fill the cooling system. When doing so, we're going to remove our radiator cap here. Continuing on, we want to continue adding the manufacturer's specified fluid directly inside of the radiator. There's several different ways you can do this. You can use a coolant funnel. Otherwise, if you have a specialty tool, you can also use that. I have the specialty tool. Now for this tool, it's essentially going to create vacuum pressure inside the cooling system. Not only is it going to fill the cooling system, but it's also going to tell me if I have a leak before I install any coolant. Now we're going to pay attention to the gauge here. As I power up the air, you're going to see the vacuum gauge make its way through the red, through the yellow, and into the green. Essentially, once it's in the green and at approximately 25 down here on the chart, we're going to wait and make sure that that's where it sits, and once we turn off the air, we want to make sure that the needle does not drop. If it starts dropping into the yellow or worse into the red, you definitely have a coolant leak and you'd want to fix that before adding coolant. Now I have my vacuum pressure on the system here. You can tell that it's definitely holding vacuum. We don't have a leak. The needle is not dropping into the yellow or, like I said, into the red. I've let this sit for a little while here. So let's continue on adding coolant. Now I'm using some universal coolant here. You can either use universal or you can use the manufacturer's specified coolant. Let's continue on. I'm going to open up the line here. This is going to draw coolant from inside of my coolant jug and draw it directly down into the cooling system. As this is happening, we're going to find that we're losing vacuum. That's due to the fact we're drawing coolant into the system. As we continue on, we want to make sure we don't run out of coolant if you're using the specialty tool. There we are. Now, if you didn't have that tool, you could continue on with a coolant funnel, as I mentioned. For that, you just want to have the specific adapter that fits directly onto the radiator. You don't want to have any movement here. Continue on with that funnel, remove the plunger from in the center, and add coolant as necessary. Once you have added coolant, the next thing you need to do is wait until you don't see any more air bubbles making its way out of the system. At that point, the next thing you have to do is go ahead and start up the vehicle, let it run for a short while, and what's going to happen is as the thermostat opens up, the coolant will start circulating throughout the entire cooling system and removing any air. Once you're sure the coolant system's full, continue on to reinstalling your radiator cap. After that, you just want to make sure that you check and top off your coolant reservoir as necessary. Just go ahead and turn that cap counterclockwise and remove it. Add your coolant, reinstall it. Okay, friend, we finished the installation of our radiator. The next thing we need to do is just make sure we clean up any mess, double check for leaks, close the hood, and take your vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.